If I had to choose one or two reasons why I thought the whole experience of making videos on YouTube and writing the ebook and writing down theories has been a success for me this last year is probably the development of my theories and the improvement in my speaking to a camera and public speaking ability. Now, the whole public speaking thing I think is still quite far away from being as good as I wanted to be, but the theories I've developed are quite special to me and very important. Especially the older I get, I think they'll become more influential as I develop. And then if you were to ask me, well, what theories are the theories that are so useful, I would have to say it's probably 5 theories. So the first theory is the constant progression theory. The idea that it's better to be improving a little bit by little rather than to have a massive burst of improvement and then have no consistency. The second theory is the average out theory, which is the idea that you must attempt to do things extremely well, but if you don't match or don't achieve the standards that you set yourself, it doesn't really matter because you've already set a high standard and you've tried to achieve it, so you're already averaging out higher in your life than you would have without setting these standards. The other theory, which I think is I don't implement it enough, but I think it's a very powerful idea, is the royal subjects theory, which needs a better name because subjects isn't really the adequate term, but it does describe the concept somewhat. And this theory is the idea that everybody in the world, especially your family and your relations, are of your people. Now, in the royal mindset, I talk about a king having his subjects, and that a king would want his subjects to do well because if they do well, then he does well, and vice versa, because they're all part of the same group. And if we could see other people in our lives, all people in our lives, as being part of the same group, as being as part of one body, as being part of a clan of brothers and sisters, then you would never feel envy, jealousy or hate towards any of these people. So you eliminate a lot of vices, or at least it's a mental exercise that allows you to eliminate these vices. Yeah, those are probably the 3 most important theories, and then the other ones are just kind of things I've already known but I hadn't. Let me say those 3 theories I talked about just there are theories I hadn't thought of before, and most of the other theories in the royal mindset, for example, are things I have understood before, like that you should eat healthily, that's very important to exercise, it's very important to develop muscle mass, important to develop your social skills. I was kind of subconsciously aware of these things anyway, but the fact that I have written them down, I made some videos on them, and I've done a bit of research the last year has kind of cemented their value in my life going forward. If there were any regrets I have from the last year, I wouldn't really have a large amount of regrets. Maybe I haven't made enough content, but as I say with the average out theory, if I wouldn't have set the high standard of making a lot of content, I wouldn't have made any at all. Let's put it that way. And this way I've made probably 30 videos, maybe 40. There's a lot of videos I don't release because I don't think that the quality is good enough. Especially if I'm not speaking particularly fluently, if I'm muttering or breaking up halfway through a concept. But even just to have the concept kind of as well developed when I speak about it. And this is something I probably want to improve on. This is probably at the moment one of the bigger things that could be better. And if there were one more theory which I would consider to be particularly special, is the lucky to be alive theory. The idea that if you were to break down logically the odds of us being alive and how slim those odds are, and then how slim the odds are that you're born into the modern world in this era, so you could have been born at any point in time, and then the odds that you're born into a first world condition, which means living in, I'd say, relative wealth, because wealth for me means you live in a house that is comfortable, you live in a family that is provided with food and fresh water every day, electricity, I consider that wealth. I don't consider like a Rolex and a Lamborghini to be relative wealth. That's obnoxious and insane wealth, let's say. But just a normal family having these high luxury goods that were, you know, extremely fancy 100 years ago. To be born into that condition, I think it's a very powerful theory to be aware of how special that is. Of course, the royal mindset is largely based on how kings are, how we live lives better than kings, and that's the core fundamental of the royal mindset. It's what makes the royal mindset work. But without that theory, this idea that we are so privileged, a lot of what's written in there wouldn't carry the same value. And yet I understand that a lot of the other theories would be valuable without them. A lot of the theories would still work, but it kind of just brings them all together. And this idea that because we're so privileged, because we have all these good things, but then it's incredibly ungrateful, very ungrateful and foolish to act unwisely in one's life. With act unwisely, I mean to consume harmful substances and to also allow your mind to enter a depressive phase. Now, people will say nobody can control if they become depressed or not, and this is about outside circumstances, etc. And I suppose I will not say no to that, but I just wonder about it a little bit, because if we are given so much in our lives, if we can see the beauty and the privilege, then you would have a much stronger opinion of your life, and it would be harder to become depressed. But then if you also use some of the theories like controlling your thought theory, I think that's in the wrong mindset. I think I made a video on that as well, where you learn to dismiss unconstructive thoughts, where you are backing up this theory with the content theory that I wrote about, where I talk about only consuming constructive content and not going down into a wormhole of, let's say, a rabbit hole of negative content, which then will again enhance your mood because you're not effectively bringing on board bad thoughts that lead yourself to depression. Then I just don't see why that wouldn't work. Again, these things are a lot clearer in my mind, and I've probably been able to communicate them. But what I hope over the next 10 years, I'll keep making videos, I'll become somewhat more adequate at explaining these theories. And as my life develops, I hope to be able to prove, as an example, that these theories are true and aren't just an idea of mine. Because I do strongly believe that any person can live an amazing life with these theories, and with basically just these theories. Another core fundamental theory is the concept that we need fundamentals in place within our lives. And these fundamentals are things like health. Health is a big one. Without health, a lot of these theories don't really work, because if you aren't healthy physically, then it's going to be a lot more difficult to stay in a healthy place mentally, due to the breakdown of chemicals and hormones within your body. So if you are overweight or obese, you're going to have higher levels of cortisol. You're going to find it a lot more difficult to stay positive. You're going to be a lot more stressed, just because it's not a natural state for the body to be in. Whereas if you're leaner, if you have a higher muscle level, then the positive hormones, like for men, testosterone for example, are going to be more present, and these in turn regulate your mood positively. So that's a fundamental, and fundamentals are extremely important. Again, diet counts into this. If you don't have this, if you don't have diet in place, then other things are more difficult to come by. But also simple dopamine functions are a lot more difficult to control. If you have diet in place, which in my opinion means basically no junk food in your staple diet, no sweets in your staple diet, basically no sugar, or at least sugar within the 35 gram per day range. I think I'm quite below that, but I'm not completely sure, but I definitely am above it. It means not having dopamine hits from things like cigarettes, vapes, just, your general craving foods. You need to have those things in place. And with that, it means you have a more regulated dopamine level, which means that in general you're going to be happier. Let's put it this way: say 50 years ago, when my father was growing up, if he was given a bar of chocolate, the dopamine hit would have been a lot higher for him because it was so rare back then, and so special. His dopamine hit would have been extremely high from this bar of chocolate. He would have been looking forward to it. He would have had cravings for it. It would have been exciting. Whereas if you give me a bar of chocolate, or most people nowadays, they've probably already had one that day. So the dopamine hit, it's not insignificant, but it's not going to be the same. So therefore your dopamine levels get deregulated, and kind of, let's say, somewhat out of sync. And these things can rebalance themselves quite quickly. Like if you go, people would call it detoxing. If you detox and return to a normal level of dopamine, then this hit becomes the same quite quickly, because our bodies are very resilient. The other point I wanted to make on the bodies was sleep patterns, especially in the modern era with video games and mobile phone technology. Sleep is another core fundamental you need to have in place. So if I were to talk about fundamentals, it would be sleep, diet and health, so fitness, that kind of thing. Pushing your body to not extremes but to healthy limits, to healthy levels. It means doing cardio and doing weightlifting. That's just a quick recap on how I'm feeling about how the channel's been going. Hoping to do a bit more content again the next couple of weeks. Back here on Royal OBS. I had done some content on Royal Fit, a different channel I was creating, but I think I'm going to focus more on this channel again, simply because I already have so much content on here that I find useful and productive, and I hope to just maintain that over the next while. One last point that I would make would be obviously finances play a large role as well. Not getting used to doing obnoxious, I would call it unnecessary spending, is going to be another very powerful tool, especially for mindset development and security. Because the more money you have, naturally, the more security you have. Because you know that you're going to be able to pay for things, you're going to be able to feed yourself and your family, etc. And that in turn is going to reduce cortisol levels, it's going to reduce stress in your life. So if you have that in place, that's another probably not as important, but maybe it is as important, because without it, most things don't work. So you do need to be good at saving money. Not so much that it's good to be making money, but you got to be able to hold on to it once you make it. I know so many people that make 30,000 euros a year and have nothing left at the end of the year because they spend on alcohol or whatever. So I would definitely consider that one probably too quite important. I mean, I have that in the Royal Mindset, it's in the book. There's a chapter on it, on finances. I don't say anything crazy. I mean, I don't tell you to invest or anything, but I do tell you to not take on silly debt, not to take on loans that you cannot pay, not to take on basically extra stress burdens that really don't benefit you or anyone else. Sometimes it's important to get a loan for like a mortgage, perhaps if you really need a house that badly and you know you're going to live there for the rest of your life, and you don't want to pay rent, because once you pay the rent the money's gone and you've nothing afterwards other than the short-term living. Yeah, fine, then get a mortgage, but don't get a loan for a car that is like 3 times more expensive than it should be. I mean, if you've got 10,000 saved and you think, oh nice, I got 10,000, let me get another 10,000 from the bank so I can buy a fancy car, rather than just buying a basic car with that initial 10,000, that I believe is a bad idea, because now you're just having debt over you, and debt, it's impossible to escape debt. It kind of follows you around in your life, and that way you're going to have stress increases. You're going to start neglecting things that are important, like the gym, because you're thinking about this money, and money becomes a god, where money should really just be something that complements your life and allows you to have security and stability. It's a transfer of wealth, a unit of transaction. That's what money is. It shouldn't be used as something to buy goods that don't even make you happier. I mean, we know the statistics that the richer you are at a certain point, the less happiness you get. There's what's it called? Decreasing level of utility, marginal utility. I forget the term from economics. So basically, if I'm poor and you give me €10,000 a year, I get a big spike in happiness because now I can buy food. And now you give me another 20,000 a year, and now I have another big spike, but it's less because now I can buy a house as well. But now you give me 300,000 a year, and the increase isn't that much bigger because I can't do that many more new things with this money. So my happiness decreases. This is obviously not going to be true for everybody, but it's kind of an average statistic from the US, I believe, where the more money you have, it's not really helpful, let's say. So really all you need is enough money to be able to look after yourself and be able to save consistently so that you have money in case you need it for a rainy day, because that's going to give you peace of mind. It's going to help you relax as well. So that's another fundamental I would definitely add in there. But yeah, I'll probably make a more detailed video on finances. Not that I have any particular advice on investments or what to do with your money. It's just about how to not spend your money and to make sure you have enough money in case something happens, so you have the ability to be resilient. Say if you were injured for a year or ill for a year, you don't have to worry. But yeah, that's the video for today. It's going to be back on the Royal OBS channel, and I look forward to making more videos in the next week. So yeah, have a nice day, guys. Thank you. Bye.